best childhood in the world. I had the pleasure of growing up in a little town called LaGrange, Georgia, which is about 30 minutes from Atlanta, Georgia, by telephone. You know, real small town. And seriously, those people who have an interest in black business history should look up the name of a man named Horace King, K-I-N-G. I was born at 213 King Street, and Horace King was a slave in South Carolina, and he made his masters millions of dollars in that time frame because he could build bridges and barns and what have you. And his son took this man from South Carolina to Alabama so they could expand their enterprise of building bridges and barns. He built the Confederate Union in Montgomery, Alabama. Horace King was set free. In 1949, his masters gave him his freedom in Alabama. He was a free man in 1849, and he went to Columbus, Georgia, Opelika, Alabama, and LaGrange, Georgia. And in LaGrange, Georgia, he built a subdivision for the colored peoples, and I was born on that street. So my DNA, very alone. My mom and daddy did their bit, but Horace King left a legacy, and I hope and pray seriously that that is part of what I try to do every day in my life. And I didn't learn about Mr. Horace King, even though it was King Street. I did not know it was named in honor of a black man until 1986 when I was reading a book and they talked about his life. It's a fascinating story. Horace E. King, the bridge builder from Alabama, South Carolina, and Georgia. I had the pleasure of going to school in the South until I was in the 9th grade. My mother and father, like a lot of families, went north to get better job opportunities in automobile factories. And we wound up in a little town called Flint, Michigan, which is about 50 or 60 miles from Atlanta, from Detroit, Michigan. And that was a rough time for me. I think I was probably 15, 16, adolescent, got in with the wrong crowd, you know, trying to fit in with urban kids, and just did not do very well at all in school and in life. And just got in with the wrong kind of people, wrong kind of kids. And so upon graduation, I always thought I was going to go to Morehouse, like every little boy in LaGrange, Georgia thought that. But unfortunately, there was a community college in our area. And my mother and father and grandfather took me over to the community college, and they gave me this hour reading test, you know, those different scores. Now, remind you, I had only been up there 3 years, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, I graduated. And I did not do well on any of those tests. And my counselor name was Mr. Earl J. Mahoney. And my mother and father and grandfather were sitting there like poor black people would sit in a meeting like that with a white man. And he commended them for having an interest in their son and grandson, but he did not think that a community college was a place for me. And he recommended that they not invest their money to send me to this community college. But he did volunteer to help me get a job at one of the local Chevrolet plants. And my mother, God bless her soul, who passed away 2 years ago, Wednesday, God bless her soul, said to Mr. Mahoney, will you just give him a chance? And of course, like any mother, you know, they're always gonna come out of that bag. And he did. And that, I guess I was 18 at that point. And when I was 28 years of age, I received my PhD from the Ohio State University. And Mr. Mahoney came to my graduation. And it wasn't so much that I was a brilliant student, because I'm not, never was, but it was because I was able to decide very early on that I was not the brightest kid in my class, but no one was going to outwork me. I knew what the alternative was if I didn't go to college. And along the way, I just made up in my mind that I was going to study harder than any student in my classes. You know, I went from a community college to a little college called Western Michigan University on probation. I went from Western Michigan University to the University of Michigan on probation. And then I went to Ohio State to get my doctorate on probation. But through it all, I survived. I know, through it all, I thrived because I did extremely well at every step of my academic career. So it was an unusual path, but I don't think it's that unusual for Bill Pickard. I think there were a cadre of black people who came along in the early and mid-60s who were given those opportunities because of affirmative action, because of what was happening in our community, and we were able to get a chance to get in the door. And you know, James Brown, that great philosopher, said it best: you open the door, I'll get it for myself. And that's been the essence of my life and everything that I've ever accomplished. Well, like every person that grew up in the mid-60s, I thought I was gonna go south and join the revolution and help black people achieve freedom and all those things that I had begun to read about and did not understand when I was probably 12 or 13 or 14, but I wanted to be a social worker. We call it community organization. And our theme was that we were going to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfort. Don't make it hard for rich people, and poor people are gonna have a chance. And I wound up working for the Urban League in Cleveland, Ohio. And I think did a pretty good job with a youth group in Cleveland, getting kids from high school into college who were not destined to go to college, called them Silent C students. That was the name of our organization. So I did that for a year, and you know, I was pretty good on my feet. I guess I was 24, 25 years old with a black man with a master's at that time from University of Michigan. People thought you could read or write and add. And so they made me then director of the NAACP for Cleveland at age 26. And again, what does a 26-year-old kid know about running an organization? But through the grace of God and people who surrounded me with love and affection, I was able to do a darn good job. And when I was 27, I was asked to go, not asked, I was invited to go to Ohio State to pursue my doctorate. And that's what I did. And I was able to get out of there about a year and a half. So I was just blessed. It was a black thing. I am an affirmative action baby. And while at Ohio State, McDonald's regional headquarters was in Columbus, Ohio. So Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, and I think Pennsylvania, the headquarters were in Columbus, Ohio. And I had a part-time job working at McDonald's, as I've done throughout my college career. And a guy came in one day and saw that I was a little bit more industrious than most of the college kids. And we started talking, and 2 years later, we were opening a McDonald's in Detroit, Michigan, myself and two other brothers. Because the first McDonald's, the other two guys were married and I wasn't. So I made $100 a week. So I had to work at the university teaching. And the deal was that we would never drain the business. So each person we had to get 3 McDonald's before I could come in full time. So we were fortunate enough. McDonald's was growing like wildfire in those days in the black community. And eventually we got up to 6 restaurants, the 3 of us. And then one gentleman left and went to Texas, matter of fact, Houston, Texas, to pursue his dream in 1980 something. And at that time, unfortunately, Houston went like that. And I guess God gives everyone a gift. And I'm able to identify winners and losers. And so I was able to surround myself with pretty good people. And I think after the partnership dissolved, I think I had 8 restaurants in 3 years. So, but again, God stepped in, and the 8th restaurant was a restaurant that I lived probably a mile and a half from in a white community. And I thought, surely, since I was a pop-up Negro, you know, I was vice chairman of the Republican Party, confidant of Ronald Reagan when he was governor, and on the campaign trail, and you know, when they needed a Negro to pop up, I popped up. And when they gave that restaurant to another gentleman who happened to be a Caucasian, I said, I'm out of here. And that's when I started my conscious decision to pursue other opportunities other than McDonald's. There's an advantage to being a social worker. Each one of my companies, I guess today, my companies do about $400 million, and every person, including McDonald's, who has been with me more than 10 years and is a, quote, contributor to the organization, they own Fathom stock in my business. And I just believe that when you own something, you're gonna work a little harder, you're gonna protect the assets better, and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm very happy to say that after 40-some years of being in business, I have one young man who's been with me in automotive 25 years, and he's gonna take over the business and become Chief Operating Officer October 1st to permit me to do what I wanna do, which I haven't figured it out yet, but I'll figure it out as we go along. So I've been very fortunate that he, again, started work for me 24, 25 years ago as an intern, just in college. And he went south. I sent him south in 1996, 97. And he's grown that business into a very, very successful business, primarily in Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, and North Carolina. So now he will move back to a Detroit area and go back and forth and run the entire, except McDonald's, he won't run that. But God has been, you know, relationships. I'll talk about this tomorrow. Relationships are critical. I know the agenda says tomorrow, mentorship, coaching. I say, well, that's good. Mentorship and coaching is very good. But I believe in sponsorship. Who is going to sponsor you when everybody else leaves the room except the men and women who can make the decisions? And I've had excellent sponsors in my life. People that only God could have put in my path. Like when I went from McDonald's to automotive, people would say, so how could you go from McDonald's to automotive? You're not an engineer, you're not a finance guy, you don't know anything about manufacturing. How did you do that? Well, my mentor was a man named Dr. Francis Albert Cornegay, a Urban League executive. And I told him after that fiasco, when they wouldn't give me that store I wanted, that I wanted to leave McDonald's. He said, well, what do you want to do? I said, I'd like to get a Lincoln Mercury dealership. He said, a Lincoln Mercury dealership? Why would you want to do that? I said, because I got a place in Tampa, Florida, and I want to get down in the wintertime and enjoy it. He said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll take you over to meet Henry Ford II when he comes up from Florida for his meeting in, I think it was April. He was chairman of the finance committee. So sure enough, Mr. Ford came up to Detroit for a meeting. Dr. Cornegay took me over to Mr. Ford, introduced me, and told Mr. Ford that I wanted a Lincoln Mercury dealership. And Mr. Ford said, no, you don't want to be a Lincoln, you don't want to be a dealer. I need black suppliers. And I bought my first company. That was in April, May. I bought my first company in October of 1982. And since that time, we've been buying and selling automobile manufacturing companies primarily. Then I bought newspapers. Maybe 10 years ago, we started buying up black newspapers. We own 7, Chicago Defender, Pittsburgh Courier, Memphis Tri-State, Michigan Chronicle, and the Atlanta Daily World. We also own a publication called Who's Who in Black Dallas, Who's Who in Black Houston, Who's Who in Black Detroit, Cleveland. So I've been very blessed to be able to invest and reinvest in our community. And I have one daughter about a previous relationship, and she's at Spelman. So I'm kind of crazy. I've never seen a deal that I want to invest in. I'm sort of a groupie for business stuff. I enjoy the risk, but I teach entrepreneurship, and the Latin derivative of entrepreneurship is risk taker. Risk taker. Most entrepreneurs take reasonable risks. We don't take crazy risks. We're not going to jump out of a building without a parachute. But yes, I am very much addicted to that. And then, but God steps in all the time. My roommate in college, and we lived in a dorm where you had no food, because that's where the poor kids live. We had no food. And my roommate was a man named Dennis Wayne Archer. He had no money, he had no food. We lived together with tang, sardines, crackers, and Ritz crackers, and we had no food. 20 years later, 30 years later, he becomes mayor of the city of Detroit. He's a big Democrat. I'm a little colored Republican. And we have casinos in Detroit. And MGM saw fit to make me co-managing partner of the Detroit MGM Casino. So these relationships that we all talk about, networking and things like this, but this is a relationship that goes back when I was probably 20, 21 years of age, living in a room with no food, which today, if I woke up this morning with no credit card and no food, ooh, I might have a nervous breakdown or something, you know. But in those days, it was just another day of making things work out for you. Well, unfortunately, I'm the only child, and I think probably psychologically, only children probably tend to join and belong to a lot of different organizations, and we probably tend to get involved in more things than people would if you had a family and all that, you know. And I didn't marry for the first time until I was 50, maybe 48, 47. I was old, and so I could work all day and all night in my business. I could chase deals all day and all night, and I enjoy that. I enjoy it. It's like, I shouldn't say, it's like relationships. The chase is more important than the capture. You know, I love deals, and I love a person when they tell me, "Oh man, you'll never get this deal done. You'll never get this deal done," because there's always a way. In our community, we think that money is the big thing that prevents you from making a deal. Money destroys creativity. You just got to know how to do. You got to get the right kind of professionals around you. Now, I'm not very bright, and when my leadership team meet, I'm the dumbest guy on the phone or the dumbest guy in the room. But I have very bright people in finance, accounting, law. All those people are a lot smarter than I am, and they can kind of narrow it down. But when all that's done and said, I like to think that my gut tells me more than the information they put on the table for me to look at. But I've had failure now. And tomorrow I'll talk about the so-called Pickard 7 steps of entrepreneurship. And number 6 is failure. And I would argue that you're born twice in your life. You're born the first time biologically of your mother. And your second birth is that moment in time when you and God realize your passion and your purpose in life. And luckily for me, I made a little money, but that's not my passion and my purpose in life. My purpose in life, my passion, is teaching and reading. But thank God I was able to, do a few things before I was able to carry out my passion and my purpose in life. Now somebody else might say my purpose is something else, but I think that is what I teach for $1 a year. So what is the essence? Find something you would love. Find something you would do for free. Then if you do that, you know you're doing what you love to do. Well, I get $1 a yeyear for my teaching in Alabama State. I enjoy it. Well, this is This whole place down here is awkward for me because these people are all corporate people. I never worked for nobody. You know, I went to my first McDonald's, I think I was 28. So I admire people who can walk into Procter & Gamble or Shell or Exxon. So I would say walk into Shell or Exxon, walk into Procter & Gamble, learn everything you can. Don't do anything illegal like take away certain documents, but learn everything you can. And then recognize one day that there's a magical moment in your life when you must pursue something for yourself and your family. Now, some people that might not ever occur because they don't want to do that. But for me, hey, I would make 1/3 of the amount of money I make now and work for myself rather than go to a good corporation and work every day. That just would not be my thing in life. So I ask everyone, pursue your dream. And I love music again, like I tell my students all the time about Jay-Z. Now here's a young man born in Brooklyn, you know, in the wrong life, you know, rolling. But Jay-Z at 19 years of age sat down one day in this apartment in Brooklyn. There was a tenement house, projects we call it. I think it was called Marcy. And he sits down at 19 years of age. And if you lived in projects like I did, you know, the windows are like this and you know, they're like that. You know, the windows are small. This boy said at 19, your vision must be greater than the window you're looking through. Now, is that life? Now, I would argue you can look out this big window and your vision still must be greater than the vision you're looking through. And then I'll close up with this one. This is my favorite. Helen Keller, so-called lady who was blind, deaf, and dumb from Alabama. Her teacher was named Mrs. Sullivan. And you know, Mrs. Sullivan taught her how to communicate with other people, blah, 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 blah. She became a renowned person helping the handicapped and the challenged people communicate with others. And one day they said, Miss Keller, now you have overcome a lot of things in your life. You were born blind, deaf, da-da-da-da. Miss Keller, what is the most pathetic thing in the world that can happen to any individual? She said, oh, that's easy. The most pathetic thing in the world is a person with 20/20 sight and no vision. So I try to always tell people, and I'm not being critical, I don't spend a lot of time with people who don't have vision. Because you know, everyone just can't get it. Some people are just more comfortable getting that paycheck every 15, and nothing wrong with that. But that's not what I do. That's not what I live and breathe for. I live and breathe to help Judy or Shanae or Barbara or whomever believe that you gotta try. And of course, if at first you don't succeed, you're about average. Most people don't succeed the first time they try something. So what's the worst that can happen? You gotta go get another job. Very important because I think it does two things. Well, it should do three things to me. It would help me maximize the gifts and the talent and the environment that I'm in. It'll help me maximize that. And then secondly, it would help me prepare myself for the possibility that I can move up in that organization. And then there's a third reality. No matter how good you are, whether you're white, female, black, Hispanic, one day you gotta leave. And today, that day is getting shorter and shorter and shorter and sooner and sooner and sooner. And this organization should help prepare people for the fact that if you have to exit, or if you exit because you want to exit, you should be more prepared to look at things strategically. And then there's a fourth reality. No matter how good you are, whether you're white, female, black, Hispanic, one day you gotta leave. And today, that day is getting shorter and shorter and shorter and sooner and sooner. And this organization should help prepare people for the fact that if you have to exit, or if you exit because you want to exit, you should be more prepared to look at things strategically. because you had all these 7, 8, 9, 12, 15 years that Procter & Gamble paid you to help them manage a business. And now you're gonna leave and go out and tell me you can't manage one? Something happened. But I can say this to you, that all too often I meet people who have been a big success in corporate America. But when they get in this game, they don't do as well. So this game is different.
Do you think you're born with it?
No, ma'am.
It can be taught.
It can be taught. Like the brother talked about, strategic planning, the person who has that leadership quality. Without a doubt, a Bill Clinton got something, you know? A Bill Clinton just got something, without a doubt. Without a doubt, Denzel Washington got something, without a doubt. But how do you build upon that basic foundation to make it become the greatness that it is?